life and confidence coach Dianna Leeder, and this is my podcast, the Crave More Life Roadshow. It's here we talk about emotional hits and lovingly kicking our own asses to get through them. Just so you know, it always comes down to being your beautiful, sassy self, living and loving from you, no matter what. So join me to hear about the healing journeys of other women, and you just might become a DIY ass kicker too. So, hi everybody. I'm Dianna Leeder, host of the Crave More Life Roadshow podcast. I'm an intuitive life hack and a confidence coach who helps women get what they want by finding their voice. I'm also the lead author of the recently released book, Find Your Voice, Save Your Life, on its way to being a series with the publishing of Find Your Voice, Save Your Life 2 in early August and Find Your Voice, Save Your Life 3 in November. A heads up to our Facebook Live watchers. We really like to gab on the show. If you've watched, then you'll know that that's true. So please just drop your questions and your thoughts in the comments below, and we will get to them once the recording is done, okay? So this wonderful woman with me is yoga teacher and so much more, Karin DesChamp. Karin and I met many years ago and have stayed connected throughout. Oh, honey, I'm so happy that you're here. Sorry, I didn't give you a chance to say that. She and I met so many years ago, and we've stayed connected, including as authors of Find Your Voice, Save Your Life. And I really do love this woman a lot, and I was so thrilled that she decided that she would write a chapter in our first edition. Karin brings joy, passion, laughter, and love to every modality of her work and to every human being she comes into contact with. And you know what? I can't say that about everybody that I meet. You need to check her out more, as Karin has many ways that she can support you, younger or older, to live a fully functioning, fun, and healthful life. When you hear Karin talk about her story and her chapter called Freedom Comes with Forgiveness, you're going to want to get the book. Karin is selling personally signed copies, and her email address will be in the comments below. So welcome to the Roadshow, my good friend Karin, the self-professed unapologetic author, yoga Gramma, and sassy survivor. And I love that. That is so great. I am really happy that you're here.
Well, that's quite the introduction, Dianna. Thank you so much.
Oh, my goodness.
Of course, the feelings are mutual. Yeah. Much love to you, Dianna.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Karin, you know what? You've had quite a career, and that just seemed to be maybe on top of the traumatic family experiences that you had and otherwise. So, and I know that one often leads to another. I think we do what we do as grown-ups based on our history to some degree. So maybe we can just jump right into the deep end if we could, you know, and I know a lot of this will be about what's in your chapter. So yeah, what kind of guided you to be where you are today?
Well, as a child, I was born, first of all, in Germany just after World War II. And of course, the neighborhood where my family lived was decimated, and my father ended up being a German soldier. And what happened was he, at the tender age of 17, was part of the Hitler resistance. And so as soon as the Gestapo discovered that, he was sent directly to the front lines in the Western Front, and spent a year on the front lines and then about a year in a prisoner of war camp. And the stories that he told me, really not as I was growing up, but as an adult, helped me understand why I lived in constant fear while growing up, because I had heard stories around the coffee table when mom and dad were talking to my aunts and uncles and what they had gone through. But I also just remember that the home itself was erratic behavior, was erratic. So I'm sure that my parents had suffered PTSD because of the war. My mom was 14. She was living with her mother, excuse me, and her sister. And my grandfather had already passed away, so my grandmother was raising them by being a tailoress for the people in their community. She was also a housekeeper for some people. And she tried to do her best to raise her two daughters on her own. But with the war going on, often there would be sirens running and they would have to run to bomb shelters and so on. And at one point, when I had pressed my mom on what had happened to her during the war, I mean, they had seen far more than they should have at their tender age. But one of the things that happened was a phosphorus bomb had fallen into, well, had dropped into their backyard. And the only way they knew where to go or what to do was by radio. So my mom ran into the house and grabbed their radio. The radio was covered with phosphorus and her hands were badly burned, seriously burned. So when she ended up in the hospital, they were going to amputate both of her hands. And my great aunt was a nurse there in the hospital, and she convinced the doctor not to amputate, that she would love to try just to take care of her and heal her hands. And so she ended up with her two hands. But you know, it's stories like this, and then my dad, stories of him being in the front line and, you know, watching a friend shoot himself in the stomach by accident and having, yeah,
Yeah.
you
So
understand. Pretty graphic, violent stuff.
yeah. So um, what's the meaning behind that for you now?
Um, well, you know, growing up, I was always afraid and didn't feel safe. And um, as I ended up in a school here in Toronto, because we did move to Toronto when Canada needed some mechanical engineers, which is what my father ended up doing. And here we land in, and it's the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so here I am in a new country, not really speaking the language. And I go to school, and here I'm revisiting the whole scenario again. First thing in the morning, we had a drill. We had to get under our desks and cover the backs of our necks. And the teacher kept saying, in case an atomic bomb fell on us. And so I did not feel safe at school either. There was trauma just really being the daughter of a German soldier. I guess I'm nervous. My voice is going. I'll take a little drink.
Mm-hmm. Take your time too.
Can you tell I'm nervous?
No, you look calm.
You're too kind. What happened was I ended up being an elementary school teacher and then administrator. And for some reason, it always seemed that I was the one who planned the Remembrance Day ceremony at the schools. And I would sit at the edge of my chair, just trembling and feeling so guilty. And I just felt all the collective guilt of all the German people for what had happened to the Jews in Germany, even though we were against Hitler and you know what he stood for, and certainly would never condone any kind of behavior like that.
And you were a child.
And I was a child, and then later, you know, as a teacher, you know, we were, of course, celebrating the victory, but also mourning the loss of so many young lives. And I just, seriously, I could taste the blood in my mouth. And I tried to find some kind of solace by speaking to friends about it. And I didn't have any luck. I went to my minister and I went to a priest. I went to counseling, and still no one was able to help me relieve some of that stress and tension I felt all around that. Because really, the intergenerational trauma and epigenetic, it was right in my DNA to be fearful.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was I was part of a multi-faith celebration at my church, a United Church, where we brought together a Christian minister, a First Nations holy man, a Jewish rabbi, and a Muslim imam. And we spent the weekend on a Saturday. Each of those people shared with a group of us. I think there may have been even 100 of us, what their religion stood for and what it meant and how it should play out in everyday life and so on. And then the Sunday church service, each of those holy people took 15 minutes of the hour and took part in the celebration. And it was such a moving celebration. And it was particularly moving for me because it was the Jewish rabbi who, in his portion, talked about the Egyptians and the Israelites and the Red Sea, and how the Israelites made it to the other side of the Red Sea while the Egyptians were chasing them on horseback. And as the Egyptian soldiers were in the middle of the sea, the walls of the sea closed and they were dying. And the Israelites were on the other side singing and dancing and saying to God, "Come sing and dance with us." And God said, "How can I sing and dance with my children dying?" Speaking of the Egyptian soldiers. And it was the Jewish rabbi that said that. And I thought, wow, if God could love the Egyptians, he would love me as a German. And so after the service, I went to the rabbi and I explained a little bit of my story, and he gave me the warmest teddy bear hug imaginable. And I just felt once and for all that I was forgiven.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
You touch on some of that in your story. And even as long as I've known you, I haven't heard all that. I haven't heard all of it. And that's incredibly powerful. I mean, you connected with the source that was able to give you the peace and the healing that you needed in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that any of that is random. I think you were probably meant to be there, and all that kind of thing. So thank goodness that you did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dianna.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that was difficult. So moving forward, I know you had a lot of other traumas as well. So feel free to pick and choose here, Karin, because I know your chapter is full of things, and this isn't meant to drag you through all that kind of stuff again, all those experiences again, but I'm curious about how those things, the trauma that you experienced as an adult, how then that shaped you to be the woman that you are now, doing what you're doing now.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing that happened to me was I apparently was a very bright child. And so I went from grade 1 and skipped grade 2 and ended up in grade 3. And the first thing that the grade 3ers said when I walked in the door on the first day of school in September is, "What are you doing here?"
Mm.
And the insecurity and self-confidence and so on just went downhill very quickly. And because I was so young and also tiny in stature, when I got to grades 6 and 7, of course, those girls were interested in boys and they were fully developed, and I was still at home playing with dolls. And so socially, emotionally, um, I was awkward and backward and insecure and didn't feel a part of my school group either. And I remember one time my grade 7 teacher came to me and he said, "Are you lonely?" And it struck me, and I thought, yes, I am lonely, because all my friends were in the grade below me, and I could only see them for a short time every day at recess. So I think I grew up to be an adult who was fairly insecure and low self-esteem. Do as you're told, be a good girl. The one thing my parents really credited us children, and there were 4 of us, was when we did well in school. And so while our home wasn't always what I would call a safe haven, because I did well at school, I was able to get some accolades and some love via that course.
Mm-hmm.
But being timid really was difficult, and until things started to change. And one of the things that really changed me was when, and I have had cancer myself and am a survivor, but it was when my daughter had cancer and I was the mama bear that I really learned to find my voice in that situation and ended up actually saving her life. Um, she had leukemia and was receiving chemotherapy pretty well every day, not on the weekends, but every day of the week for 9 months. And I was with her most of the time. Sometimes her father and I would switch off, and I would take care of her children, and he would be with her, and then he would be with her, and I would take care of the children. But while I was taking care of her one day, I realized that, she had a terrible headache, and they had given her enough pain medication that would have put a horse to sleep, and she was still not sleeping. She was still in terrible pain. Her hearing was starting to go. And I realized, because I was giving her the medication, her chemo pill, it was every time I gave her this pill, which was every 4 hours, she seemed to get worse. And I thought, this isn't right. So I went to the head nurse and explained my concern. Why is this happening to her? She can't really see. Her headache is unmanageable. She can't hear. What's going on? No, her vitals are fine. Anyway, I spoke up. I found my voice for her, and they gave her a CAT scan. They gave her an MRI, and apparently everything was looking really well. And I said, no, there's something wrong. Seriously wrong. So I called the nurse again, and she said, well, no, she's fine. And then Mama Bear let it go. I said, I will not sit idly by while you let my daughter die tonight. It's her brain. She needs a neurologist. And anyway, I did take a little bit of a hissy fit because I knew she was going downhill.
Mm-hmm.
So shortly after, the neurologist came in, and I explained it was after I gave her this pill. that she kept getting worse and worse, and I thought it was her brain. And he checked her over. He said, "My God, her brain is swollen, and if you hadn't acted, she would have been dead by morning."
Wow.
And so that was one of the things that really helped me. When your gut is telling you that something is wrong, we really have to trust that and do everything we can to um, make sure that what we're feeling is true and dealt with properly.
Absolutely. It makes me think about how we
Yeah, but that's what
defer
mothers
to
do for
other
their children.
people. Yes. Yes, we do. Sorry, you froze up there a little bit. It makes me think about how when we are, when we're silenced in any way, then we will defer to other people. And, doctors, nurses, medical community, there are so many other communities that can be power over, and to us, feel as though, well, they're the experts. Who are we to tell them how to do their jobs? If they say she's fine, but you knew better and you trusted that intuition of yours, and it was a really good thing that you did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. That was the big one, the big, yeah, find your voice one of, because I know you went on to do so many more.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a bit about the because I know that you have, and I had read this before, that you have finished formally teaching and administering, and now you are the yoga Gramma. I love that, the yoga Gramma.
Yeah.
I'd be afraid to
Yeah.
ask my grandkids what they may be calling me, so we just won't go there. Yeah, so because that, I guess what the connection I'm trying to make is
Well,
that
you know,
you were, sorry, and I think I think our connection is really bad. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, but what the connection that I'm thinking about is coming up for me is that you had such a traumatic childhood, and a lot of your adult life was very difficult, and your life is very different now, and um, you've chosen a new career that is full of peace.
mm-hmm.
You have done that, and you've done that intentionally. So tell us a little bit about how you were able to flip that switch.
um, well, I guess it was once I retired, and I've, done yoga for over 20 years. And so finally, when I retired, I was able to pursue that passion I had for yoga. And I always wanted to be a real, hatha yoga flow, vinyasa flow, um, mat yoga teacher. However, arthritis arthritis isn't very kind to me. So while I did the yoga for 20 years on the mat, I always said I was going to be a yoga teacher when I retired. Well, I am a yoga teacher now that I'm retired, not in the way that I thought I would be. I do chair yoga with some standing, using the chair as a prop. And when I became a yoga teacher and then started practicing with people who wanted to do yoga with me, the feedback that I got gave me so much confidence. And so I still actually, I taught a class this morning, and just the feedback, that was great, and you're wonderful, and we love you. And some lady called me sweetheart. And how can you not be more confident when people are trusting you and paying to be with you? That's the great thing I like about yoga. People can take yoga classes anywhere, but when they pay you to be in your class because they feel supported, they feel heard, they feel seen, and they trust you and respect you, how can you not become more confident and use your voice then to support other women? Because we're such a close community, they're able to share their hardships and their traumas, and they trust me because I'm now sharing mine. And there's something about women supporting women that just cannot be beat.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I absolutely agree. And thank you for pointing that out. It's yeah, the women's community is so strong. And we all, I think I said this yesterday that it kind of came out of me, and I thought that I don't know why I didn't think about this before. I don't think that there is one woman on this earth who has not been challenged to use her voice. I mean, even women that are raised to be strong and don't have any kind of trauma, they're still challenged because they're women. So I think I agree. I think for women to come together and to come together in a place like a yoga class where where you're getting centered and you're getting grounded, I think is incredibly healing. And when you do that within a sisterhood, it's like icing on the cake.
Oh, thank you. You said that beautifully. Exactly. And that's what we feel.
Nice. So it feels to me like you did intentionally choose, even, I mean, you were doing yoga for 20 years before you retired, you said. So you intentionally chose that as a peaceful path for you, probably as you were still going through some of your own traumatic experiences. And then to bring it forward to be able to support other women, I think is awesome. I think it's why we're here. I think you're in service to other women in this world, and that's amazing. Yeah.
Well, and as just recently, because I've been doing this now in my own business for 3 years. 3 years I've been doing this. There was a posting on Facebook that Community Care Peterborough, where I live, needed a yoga teacher to go into retirement homes to do yoga classes and fitness classes. Well, while I was teaching, I was a coach of many things and had lots of trainings. And I thought, yeah, I can do fitness too. I have certification. So now I'm teaching 14 classes a week and going into retirement homes and doing it live. Now, mind you, I'm wearing a mask and I wear glasses so I can see, but I have goggles over my glasses so they can't see my face. And because everyone else is masked, all I see are their eyes. And I'm trying to remember names just by looking at eyes. I'm going to have an eye fetish by the time this is over. Anyway, I just love it. They are so sweet and so grateful, for whatever you say and do. And I'm thinking, I am so blessed. Who would have thought that at my age, when I should be retired and, perhaps knitting or doing things, that I have the opportunity to go in. And I would do this as a volunteer, but don't tell Community Care that. They're paying me to do this. So it's a blast.
And that's so validating for you, right? And it's true. When someone wants to pay you for what you're doing, and my guess is they're getting their money's worth. I have no doubt that they're getting their money's worth, right? Because it clearly is part of your makeup to be in service to other people, to be supportive and to be loving and to, be able to help them with that movement that at that age and in a retirement home, they probably really need. So I am interested though in knowing how, so when, I mean, does everybody get involved? And this is probably just a mindset of my own, thinking that, I'm wondering how many people at that age would have been connected to yoga before. I guess yoga has been around for a very long time, so I could be way off base here. But so do you have a good following?
Yes, I do now because of COVID, and we can only have a certain number depending on the size of the room.
Right.
I don't think I'm getting as many people now as I will once the restrictions are lifted, just because there isn't space.
Yeah.
But in one place in particular, there's a huge atrium, and we can have, I think, up to 30 people in there. And pretty well, I mean, people come and go when they have visits outdoors too, but there are at least 20 people every time in this space. And yeah, it's interesting because there I need to use an amplification system
Mm.
because the ceilings are so high and so on. So that's another little bit of a challenge because now I've got a microphone on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
You'll be
yeah,
passing these people in hallways later, and no one's going to know who the other one is.
that's right. They don't even know what I look like,
Yeah.
really. But yeah.
So, so Karin, um, tell me about how you I lost my train of thought. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. Tell me about anything that you would like to suggest to women who have had significant trauma. I think that's fair to say that you have had significant trauma. Um, what advice would you give for women to get through those, to get to the other side where you are, get to the healing side?
hmm Well, let's just say that it didn't happen overnight. Um, I knew that I was in trouble because I was starting to fall into depression, and I had certainly anxiety my whole life. And not in a too far distant past, I was diagnosed finally with PTSD myself, so post traumatic stress disorder. And if I could just backpedal a little bit, the other reason I'm so anxious about things is that my brother, who was 2 years younger than I was, oh, and I just loved him so much. He was the best playmate ever. And being 2 years younger, you'd think I'd know better, but he thought of the coolest things to do. And I just went along and had a riot. We got into so much trouble, but it was innocent trouble. But yeah, we were in trouble all the time. And then as an adult, he was just so very generous and caring and loving, and family meant so much to him. But he ended up with diabetes at the age of 25. And I think he just decided that he was going to live his life and he was going to live at large. And he didn't take the rests when he needed to. He didn't follow a strict regimen of diet and so on. So by the time he was 44, he was going blind. Um, he was in a wheelchair for about 4 years. He had renal failure, so was on daily dialysis. Um, he had gangrene in his feet, so amputation was in his future. He couldn't eat. Anyway, um, all that being said, my dear brother, and his choice wasn't the best, but he took his life very violently. And it took me back to the war and guns and yeah, that whole thing. And
Sorry.
yet,
I'm sorry to hear
yeah,
that.
it was devastating. But then I thought about it, and I realized this man who was, he was a hunter, he was a fisherman, he was the party animal, he was a deep sea diver, he was a skydiver, he loved his motorcycle, and he was married, and he and his wife shared 2 children, and oh, yeah. So that was very traumatic for me too. And I think that, finding something like yoga, to get back to your question, or Tai Chi, or even running or weightlifting, like find something that you really enjoy that's going to bring you into the depths of who you are. Something that gives you pleasure, something that you can be passionate about, something that gives you strength is certainly important. But also, I went to counseling. I had a psychologist, I had a psychiatrist, I was on medication. I really used meditation as well. So, do whatever it takes to get you to where you need to be. There's no need to suffer alone. There are lots of resources out there. Um, and even, if you can't afford them, because I know they are costly, even on the internet, you can get so much information and so much support from podcasts, for example, like this one, or free other ones. And I don't know that I should mention them, but the resources are there. Tune in, listen to them, see how you can fit, what's being discussed into your own life. But basically, just trust yourself and know that you know best. And that if you look within yourself, you'll find your answers.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that that's an important, really important point, and a really important place to, kind of finish that thought, because as long as we're looking somewhere outside of ourselves, we're not going to find our truth. We're not going to find alignment with ourselves. And I think when we do get there, our life changes incredibly for the better. I think we are intended to be aligned with ourselves. It's not just the latest fad. I think we're intended to be aligned to ourselves. And I'm not sure that we all, whether we all know that or understand it or apply it. It's so easy for women to get caught into that web of supporting other people all the time, and in the process not knowing themselves. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I do have my look inside tattoo on my arm, so that's a big one for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I just want to ask you quickly too, before we move on toward closing, but I just want to ask you if you would talk a little bit about the laughter yoga.
Laughter yoga. Yes, I do the chair yoga, but also we do laughter yoga, and it is a hoot. And basically, laughter yoga is not thinking up jokes and telling jokes. It's laughter, for physical reasons, because we often just breathe in the top third of our lungs, where when we laugh, it gets right down to the bottom third. So physically, there are so many beautiful things that happen when we laugh, but also mentally, emotionally. A good belly laugh is certainly good medicine.
Absolutely.
So we just laugh for the reason of laughing. And so, for instance, I'll just show you. So
Please.
we can just look at our watches and without saying anything, just Or after Christmas, we can look at our Visa bill and just go,
I love it.
But where it really comes in is when you're in and unfortunately we're doing it on Zoom now. But if you're in a room full of people who are live and with you there, you just laugh and laugh and laugh because everybody else is laughing. But this is where it comes in as far as healing trauma, because laughter yoga can be used for things like, I have no money. I don't know where I'm going to get my next meal. And then we laugh. Or, I've just been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And it sounds bizarre, but because the brain and the body are so connected, and laughter will release those happy hormones on their own, it can't tell the difference if it's a serious illness you're dealing with, or just, saying, I have no Wi-Fi. Let's try this. It's so healing.
Wow.
It's so healing. And, we do silly things like after we do some laughter, it's very good, very good. Yay. Or we go, aloha laughter. This is aloha laughter. Alo. And it seems silly, and you think, am I really doing this? Am I really doing this silly thing? You say, yes, I am, because with a group of people, it's so much fun, and we leave feeling better no matter what the situation was. Yeah.
I think that is magnificent, and I could not help but laugh with you.
Yeah. I know.
I do love to laugh, and I like to laugh at really silly things like this. Yeah, that works for me. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And for it to have that kind of impact, like brain impact, I think is wonderful. Because yeah, sometimes we get some pretty heavy emotional hits. So to be able to use, take that different perspective to give it some space to do whatever it needs to do, I think is really awesome. So congratulations. I know
Mhm.
you talked about it before, but I didn't realize it was as simple as that, and yet not as simple as that. So,
Exactly.
I'm going to have to get you to come and do it for one of my groups. You're going to have to come and do that for us. Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to.
You do it on Zoom, right?
We do it on Zoom.
Okay. Are you hearing that? Any listeners? Are you hearing that?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Call this woman up and get her on your Zoom for your board or whatever.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. The stuffier, the better. That's what I've,
yes, that's right. Let me see those papers. Let me see those
yeah.
graphs.
Let me see those numbers. Let me see those losses, those corporate
Oh,
losses.
yeah.
Oh my
And
goodness.
well, the other thing that gave me real confidence, I know we're probably wrapping up, was my 41-year marriage broke up, and I was devastated probably for about 10 years. 10 years because I love this man so much. But this story has a happy ending because I'm now remarried to someone who treats me like a queen, and we have the same interests, and yet we have different interests, and we're free to do whatever it is we want. And, we know that each other's name is safe in the other's mouth. And yeah, we just have a blast every day, and we laugh so much. And I just feel so blessed.
Mm, absolutely. I'm sure he feels the same way. So it's interesting when you think about it, how, when we are under a cloud of whatever has happened to us, whether it's traumatic experiences or a lousy upbringing or whatever it was, that it's not easy to choose people who, we're going to fit with, tightly and concretely, and to have that kind of amazing relationship. I think it's not that we make the wrong choices, because I think we take the path that we're meant to take. And thank goodness that we do, because what we create, within those relationships. But when we do get to a place where when we are closer to being healed, and we understand ourselves more, and we get more connected to what we need from, a soulmate. Again, it's kind of, your world changes when you're aligned to yourself, right? You make different choices, you embrace different things, you give yourself the opportunity to laugh. I can't imagine that there was always a point in your life where you felt like you could laugh. Now you can laugh all the time.
Yes. Oh, right on.
Yeah.
But the other interesting part is that my husband, present husband, is also in a second marriage, and the really cool thing is we're wonderful friends of our exes, and both of us can say that we still love our exes. Perhaps not as a spouse, but certainly as a family member. And each of us would feel if anything happened to our exes, we would just be heartbroken. So yeah, we visit back and forth, and my first husband, my present husband's a musician and loves literature and that kind of thing. My first husband was a hunter and a fisherman, and next weekend he's taking Ken and I in his bass boat, and we're going fishing. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, I've got the best of both worlds.
Awesome. It sounds like it. Yeah.
It's great fun.
So I just have one last question to ask of you, and you told me so much about the fun stuff, but that is my question. My last question is if you can share one fun or funny thing about you that you don't normally share. And I do ask this of everybody.
Oh, I don't. Oh gosh, a funny thing that I don't normally share.
And maybe you do. Maybe you do share it all the time. It's okay.
You know what? It's not even funny, but it's weird. Can I give you weird?
Sure.
Ever since I was 1 year old, and this is ridiculous because I'm almost 70. Ever since I was 1 year old, I would take things like a serviette or a piece of paper, and I would make a little tent with it, like this. Even a fork would work. And I stick it in my eye to go to sleep.
Oh.
And that is a true story. Even at this age, I can't go to sleep without making a little tent with the corner of the sheet and putting it in my eye to go to sleep. Now, how weird is that? I freaked out my husbands by doing this. And my kids and grandkids just says, oh, grandma, anyway, that's the weird thing that I don't normally share.
That's funny. It's funny. That's totally funny.
It puts me to sleep.
So you can laugh at that in your laughter yoga classes, right? You can say, poke yourself in the eye with a tent, with a fork. Yeah, you could do that. You could totally do that.
I know.
Yeah. Thank you, dear. Karin. Thank you. This has been fun. I really appreciate you being here and and sharing some of the details of your story, so that women, and why we did the book obviously was so that women could read those stories and connect with something that will support them in using their own voice. So this is just another layer of that. It's just, making it that much more public and yeah, hoping to connect with as many women as possible who need to hear your story. So again, everybody, go and get the book if you don't have it. If you do and you haven't read it yet, if you haven't read Karin's chapter, go and read that too. It's amazing. She's a phenomenal writer. I don't think her writing is finished yet. I think she's got lots to write about. Is my prediction. Anyway, thank you again, Karin. I really appreciate it. Love you lots. And we will sign off. I just want to say to listeners, you know what I always tell you at the end of these? Just by showing up today, you are kicking your own ass. You're listening, you're creating your own awareness. You are using that awareness to shift whatever it is you choose to shift at whatever time you're ready to do that. So thank you for being here, and we will connect the next time.
If you like today's podcast, hit subscribe at the bottom on your way out, and come find me at cravemorelife.com for even more DIY ass kicking.